In the dark shadows and in the white cold, fearlessly we search for knowledge new and old. We drink the strong spirits and read the ancient tomes. The order of the Abracast, we are the brave and bold.
The Abracast, occult, history, conspiracy, and violence.
All right, everybody, welcome. I'm John Towers. This is the Abracast. I thought I would do something fun for the New Year's, and we've been talking about this Roland character, so I thought I would do a little mini video episode about the stories of Roland. And this is coming from H.E. Marshall, published in 1907. So this is a guy, basically, he took the the Song of Roland, which is the epic poem, the epic French poem that we've talked about over and over again, and he turned it into a story that's easy to read. And I was going through it today, and I was like, this is really good. So I thought that I would share it with you guys for like a New Year's Day kind of thing. You know, you're hungover, you're stuffed, you're hungover and you're stuffed, and you really just want to listen to something while you're digesting all this food and suffering through your hangover. I got you covered, bros. Here we go. We're going to cover the stories of Roland. This is I should name it actually, Roland Blows the Horn, The Death of Oliver, and The Death of Roland. There's some pretty touching stuff in here. All right, so Roland sounds his horn. Alone, King Margalies fled, weary and wounded, until he reached King Marsilie. He fell, panting at his feet. Ride, ride, sire, he cried. Thy army is shattered, and thy knights to the last man lie dead upon the field. But thou wilt find the Franks in evil plight. Full half of them also lie dead. The rest are sore, wounded and weary. Their armor is broken, and their swords and spears are shattered. They have naught wherewith to defend themselves. To avenge thy death, and thy knights were now easy. Ride, oh, ride. In terrible wrath and sorrow, King Marsilie gathered the new army. In 20 columns through the valleys they came marching, and suns shone upon the gems and gold work of their helmets, upon lances and pennants, upon buckler and embroidered surcoats. 7,000 trumpets sounded in the charge. And the wind carried into the clamor afar. Oliver, my comrade, said Roland, when he heard it. Oliver, my brother, the traitor Ganelin, hath sworn our death. Here his treachery is plain to be seen, but the emperor will bring upon him a terrible vengeance. As for us, we must fight again a fierce battle keen. I will strike with my trusty Durandal. No, with thy Heliclaire. Roland has a magical sword called Durandal. Oliver has a magical sword called Herinkel. Bright. We've already carried them with honor in many battles. With them we have won many a victory. No man may say scorn of us. So in this stage of the story, what we're talking about is Charlemagne and his army moved into Spain to fight the Saracens. And they struck a deal with the Caliph, and they were going to move back into France through the Pyrenees, through Roncevaux Pass. And there was a traitorous knight in their ranks named Ganelin, who is also Roland's stepfather or something. So Ganelin set them up. He said, look, they're going to go through the pass. It's going to take them a bunch of days to do it. And when the majority of the army gets through the pass, you attack the rear guard, because that's where Roland is going to be, and his paladins. Roland and his paladins were like the fucking Justice League of the Franks at that time. And that's what happened. The Saracens let the majority of the army get through the Pyrenees Pass, and they attacked the rear guard, which was Roland and Oliver and all of his boys. The problem is they massacred them. And Roland, so we talked about Durandal already. Roland also has this horn. It's called Oliphant. It's this magic horn, and when and only he can blow it. We talked about this in the Stories of Roland episode. It was just last week or something. Go check it out. In a terrible wrath and sorrow, King Marsilie gathered a new army, and 20 columns through the valleys they came marching, and the sun shone. Oh, I already did this one. Oliver, my comrade, said Roland, and he heard it. Oliver, my brother, the traitor Ganelin hath sworn our death, here his treachery is plainly seen, but the emperor will bring upon him a terrible vengeance. I did this one too, but I'm going to keep going. And so once again the Franks were ready for battle, but Marsilie is a wily foe. Hearken, my barons all, he cried. Roland is a prince of wondrous strength. 2 battles are not enough to vanquish him. He shall have 3. Half of ye shall go forward now, and half shall remain with me until the Franks are utterly exhausted. Then shall ye attack them. Then shall we see the day of the might of Charlemagne shall fall, and France shall perish in shame. So King Marsilie stayed on the hillside, while half his knights marched upon the Franks, with the battle cry and the trumpet's call. O heavens, what cometh now? Cried the Franks as they heard the sound. Woe, woe! Whatever we saw Ganelin, the felon. Then spoke the brave archbishop to them. This is Archbishop Turpin. Now it is certain that we shall die, but it is better to die sword in hand than in slothful ease. Now is the day when we shall receive great honor. Now is the day we shall win your crown of flowers. The gates of paradise are glorious, but within no coward shall enter. We shall not fail to enter, cried the Franks. It is true that we are but few, but we are bold and staunch, and striking their golden spurs until their chargers' flanks rode to meet the foes. Once more the noise and dust of battle rose. Once the plain was strewn with dead, and the green grass was crimson dyed. The scattered wide the jewels and gold, splintered weapons and shattered armor. Fearful was the slaughter, mighty the deeds of valor done. Until the last the heathen broke, the fled amain. After them in hot pursuit rode the Franks. Their bright swords flashed and fell again, and all was the way marked with the dead. The lengthened heathen cries, the despairs reached even where King Marsili stayed on the hillside. Marsili, O our king, ride, ride, we need the Thiel, they cried. Even the king's feet the Franks pursued the fleeing foes, slaying them before his face. Then Marsili mounted upon his horse, led his last knights against the fearless foe. The Franks were nigh exhausted, but still 300 swords flashed in the sunlight. 300 hearts still beat with the hopes of courage. As Roland watched Oliver ever in the thickest of the fight, dealing blow upon blow, unnecessarily his heart swelled anew for the love of him. O comrade leal and true, he cried, alas, this day shall end our love. Alas, this day we shall part on earth forever. This is not gay. This is a guy who's like, I'm going to die with my best friend in a fucking sword fight. We on went the fight, fiercer and fiercer yet, but still 60 weary Franks were left. Then, sadly, gazing upon the stricken field, Roland turned to Oliver, and he said, "Behold, our bravest lie dead," he cried. "Well may France weep, for she is shorn in her most valiant knights. O my emperor, my friend, alas, we wert thou not here. Oliver, my brother, how shall we speed him now, this mournful news?" "I know not," Oliver said. "Rather come death now than any craven deed." "I will sound upon my horn," Roland said, his pride broken and gone. "I will sound upon my horn, and Charlemagne will hear it, and the Franks will..." I lost my place. "No, there is no courage, no wisdom in that. Had the emperor there, we had been saved. But now it is too late, for all is lost. Nay," he cried, raising his wrath, "if ever I see my sister fair, adieu," which we know Roland was engaged to Oliver's sister. "I swear to thee thou shalt never hold her in thine arms. Never shall be the bride of thine," for Roland loved Oliver's beautiful sister, Adieu, and was loved by her. And when Roland would return to France, she had promised to be his bride. "Ah, Oliver, why dost thou speak to me with such anger and hate?" cried Roland sadly. "Because it is my fault that so many Franks lie dead this day." answered Oliver. It is thy folly that thou hast slain them. Hadst thou done as I prayed thee, our master Charlemagne had been here. The battle had been fought and won, and Marseilles had been taken and slain. Thy madness it is, Roland, that hath wrought our fate. Henceforward we can serve Charlemagne and never more. And now here endeth our loyal friendship. Oh, bitter the parting is night shall see. With terrible grief in his heart, stricken dumb with misery and pain, Roland gazed upon his friend. But Archbishop Turnitin had heard the strife between the two, and setting spurs to his horse, he rode swiftly towards them. Sir Roland, and you, Sir Oliver, he cried, I pray you strive not thus. See, we all must die in thine horn. Roland can avail nothing now. The great Carl is too far and would return too late. Yet we were well to sound it, for the emperor, when he hears it, will come to avenge our fall. And the heathen will not return joyously to their homes when the Franks come, and all right from their horses. They will find our bodies, and will bury them with mourning and tears. So we shall rest in hallowed graves, and the beasts of the field shall not tear our bones asunder. It is well said, Roland cried. Then to his lips laid his horn, and taking a deep breath, he blew mightily upon it. With the strength left in his weary body, he blew full and clear and high. The horn sounded from the mountain peaks to mountain peaks. The note was echoed till to the camp of Charlemagne, full 30 leagues away. He blows it a few more times, and the fucking Charlemagne finally gets the picture. The death of Oliver. In the dawning of the day, Roland looked to the mountain and looked into the plain. Everywhere the Franks lay dead around him. Then, like a noble cavalier, he wept for them, and he says, my lords and barons, he sighed, my God, have mercy on you. May your souls reach paradise and rest among the holy flowers forever. Better vassals than ye were never seen. Well, have ye served me these many years, O land of France, my loved country? Today thou mournest my best barons, and it is for me that they die. Oliver, my brother, Oliver, let us again strike the heathen. If they slay me not, I die of grief and shame. And once again, Roland the Terrible arose and swung his sword Durandal, until, as deer before the hounds, the heathen fled before him. Good, cried Archbishop Turnitin. 'Tis ever thus knights should fight. Else he had better be a monk praying in some lonely cell, that our sins may be forgiven us. Strike! Strike! Cried Roland. Strike and do not spare. Once again the clash and the clang of battle rang upon the still morning air, but as the Christian knights were wondrous few, the heathen many. Through the thickest and the fight rode King Marseilles, slaying many a knight. Cursed be thou, cried Roland, for many a comrade hast thou slain before my face. Yet ere we part, thou shalt know the name of my good sword. And when he, with one stroke, he cut off the king's right hand, and with another he laid his son dead at his feet. Then in terror Marsilis fled. Mohammed, avenge us, he cried, upon these felon Franks whom Charlemagne had left in our fair Spain. Although Marsilis fled, the Caliph, his uncle, still remained. And that same Caliph whom Ganelin had lied, saying he had seen him drown before his eyes. Now, savage war cry, he threw himself upon the dwindling Christian company. Now, cried Roland, the end hath come. No longer have we to live, but strike, my lord, strike and sell your lives as dearly as may be. Strike so that France be not dishonored. And when Charlemagne shall come and shall find 15 heathen dead for every one of us, he will bless us even while he mourns. Shame, shame to Lagarde, cried Oliver, dashing into the fray. But the traitor Caliph struck him from behind, full in the middle of his back, through his silken cloth and the coat of steel, and he drove a lance until it pierced the breast of the gallant knight. Ah, cried the Caliph, now hast thy death below. In thee alone have I avenged all our host. Oliver was indeed sorely wounded, but wheeling quickly, he lifted his good sword high in the air and brought it crashing down upon the Caliph's golden helmet. The sparkling gems with which it was set were scattered upon the grass, from crown to chin. The head was cloven, and without the groan the heathen sank upon the earth. Still wielding his sword right manfully, Oliver called to Roland, 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 come to me. Be thou near me at the end, for today is the day of our last farewell. This story gets me fucking going, dude. Through the battle, Roland spurred his horse to Oliver's side. With mournful eyes, he looked upon the ashen face and upon the red stream which trickled from his wound. Alas, my gentle friend, he cried, alas, it is the end of all thy prowess, all thy fame, now in the emperor's loss complete indeed. And saying these words from grief and pain, he fainted, sitting upon his horse. Roland does a lot of feigning from this point on. As Roland fainted, he reeled against Oliver, and his eyes already dark. He knew his friend not, feeling that he was struck. He returned the blow, striking heavily upon Roland's helmet. He clove it in two, but his sword went no further, and Roland unwounded. We're going to skip ahead a little bit. Once again, Roland reopened his eyes and looked upon the utter ruin of all his knights. Of all the Christian host, but two remained with him alive. Oliver was dead. These were Turpin, the brave archbishop, and Guntur of Hun, a right and noble count, with lances broken, shields pierced, and armor shattered. The valiant three still fought. The heathen throng, Saracen after Saracen, fell beneath their blows. What fearsome men, cried they. but they shall not escape alive. Craven is he who attacketh them not, more craven he who let them escape. But soon such was the might of the dauntless three that heathen dared no more attack them. The 1,000 foot and 40,000 horse still remained in the Saracen host. Yet afar they stood, hurling lance and spear and javelin at the three who faced them side by side. So in my brain, it's like a whole battlefield with just three French dudes in the middle. Like, it's phenomenal. This is something awesome. Like, how come there's not movies made of this? Well, I know. Do you know? I know why there's not movies made of this. Do you know? Soon Gautier fell dead, pierced by a flying dart. Next, the bishop's horse was killed beneath him, and Turpin was carried to the ground. But in a moment he sprang up again, and he says, "I am not vanquished yet," he cried to Roland. "As long as good warrior hath breath he fights, and dashing upon heathen, sorely wounded though was he laid about him with such good will that, as is told after days, they found 400 dead about him." He fucking killed 400 dead dudes. Well, when he killed them, they were alive. That's the way I read it. Roland too fought in deadly pain, and sorely he longed to know if Charlemagne were near. So now again he took his horn, and he blew upon it, and a faint and feeble blast. The pitiful soft notes floated through the air. In the faint and feeble though they were, they reached the ear of Charlemagne. The emperor drew rein and bent his ear to listen, and he says, "My lords, it goeth ill with us. The day I ween my nephew lost to me. So wearily he wins his horn, 'tis like a dying man. If ye would reach him ere it is too late, set spur to the horse and let every trumpet in the army sound. Let he may know we come." So this is Charlemagne turning the majority of the army around. So the majority of the army is through the Pyrenees. Oliver and Roland are at Roncevaux Pass, still on the Iberian side of the mountains. This is Charlemagne hearing Roland's horn, Oliphant, and he was like, "Yo, bitches, turn this army around and let's go and find out what's going on with Roland. He knows what's going on." He says, "Let's turn around and fuck these motherfuckers up." Then 400 of the boldest of the heathen drew together, and marching in close rank, shoulder to shoulder, they charged down upon Roland. One man. French. He's a Frenchman. As Roland saw them come, he felt his strength return to him, and while he had life, he would never yield, and rather death than fight. So striking spurs, he urged his wearied horse forward and dashed alone against 400 heathen. His stirrup ran the archbishop. All right, so the archbishop was still alive. Turpin was still alive. And as the Saracens saw the dauntless hero come, they were seized with terror and fled before them. "Flee! Flee!" they cried. It is the trumpets of France we hear. Charlemagne the mighty is upon us." Roland was ever the bravest and most courteous of knights. All right, so there's this whole bit here about how he he basically is like, his buddy, his archbishop, is running next to Roland's horse. So Roland's like, hey, this isn't fair. I'm just going to get off my horse and we can both fight on our feet, which is weird. So ere they fled, the heathen hurled their spears and lances at Roland. So the archbishop dies. They are hurling their spears and lances at Roland. His shield was broken and his hauberk riven asunder. And beneath him sank his good horse, pierced by 30 wounds. And the archbishop lay too silent on the ground. But the last heathen had fled. On that ghastly field, Roland stood alone. The death of Roland. Over the plain fled the heathen, and Roland could no more pursue him. His good horse lay dead beside him, and he, all weary and worn, bent to his aid his dear friend Turpin. Quickly, Turpin's not really dead, by the way. Quickly he unlaced his helmet and drew off his shirt and his mail. Now he stands in a rent with many a sword many a sword cut, and tearing his silken vest in stripes, and he gently bound his wounds, then tenderly lifting him to his arms, and he laid him on a grassy bank. Kneeling beside the dying archbishop, Roland whispered softly, Father, our comrades whom we loved are all slain. But we should not leave them thus. We shall leave to go, and I will seek them and bring them here, that thou mayest bless them once more. Go, friend, said Turpin, but return right soon, and thanks be to God, for the field is ours. We have won it, thou and I alone. So all alone Roland went across the dreadful field. One by one he found the peers of France, these paladins of his. And one by one he tenderly raised them in his arms and brought them to the archbishop, laying them at his feet. And this guy blesses them, and he says, he says, as Turpin gazed upon them lying there so still and quiet, tears started to his eyes and trickled down his pale, worn cheeks. And he says, my lords, he cried, raising his hands in the blessing, may the Lord of all glory receive your souls in the flower starting meadows in the paradise. May ye live forever. And there on the battlefield, he absolved them of all their sins, and he assigned to them the sign of the cross. Once again, Roland returned to search for the plane of his. So he's found a bunch of these dudes, but he hasn't found Oliver yet. So he's searching for Oliver. At last, under a pine tree by a wide rose bush, he found Oliver's body, and he tenderly lifted him up. And faint and spent, staggering now beneath the burden, he carried him, and he laid him onto the other peers besides the archbishop, and so that he might receive his last blessing. Fair Oliver, my comrade, said Roland, kneeling beside him, to break a lance and shatter into pieces a shield, to counsel loyally and well, and to punish the traitors and cowards. Never was there a better knight on earth than fainting. Roland fell forward on the ground. Turpin saw Roland swoon, and he stretched out his hands and took his ivory horn from his neck. Though Roncevaux there flowed a stream, and the archbishop thought that if he could reach the stream, he would be able to bring from it some water to revive Roland. With great difficulty he rose, and trembling footsteps, staggering, and he went. These are just dudes that are just dead. Like, they are just hacked to pieces. It's so powerful. Staggering, and he went, and he dragged himself a little way, but his strength was gone, and soon he stumbled and upon his knees, unable to rise again. Turning his eyes to heaven, he clasped his hands together, and he says, "May God take me to his paradise," he cries, and so fell forward dead. Thus died the archbishop in service of his emperor. He who both by word and weapon had never ceased to war against the heathen was now silent and still forever. When Roland came to himself, he saw Turpin kneel upon the ground a little ways off, and then fall forward dead again. Roland rose. And he rose 3 times, by the way. It's a gigantic Christ allegory. Going to the archbishop, crossed his beautiful white hands upon his breast. "Ah, father," he said, "knight of noble lineage, I leave thee in the hands of the most glorious. Never man served him more willingly. Nay, never since the holy apostles hath such a prophet been. To win man, guard our faith, wert ever ready. May the gates of paradise be wide for thee." That's an awesome toast. I'm going to remember that. May the gates of paradise be wide for thee. Then, lifting his hands to heaven, Roland called aloud, "Ride, O Carl of France, and ride as thou mayest in Roncevaux. There is a great sorrow for thee. But the King Marsilie too hath sorrow and loss. And for one of us there lie here 40 of the heathen. For every one Frenchman, there was 40 dead heathens." The faint and weary Roland sank upon the grass. In one hand he clasped his ivory horn Oliphant, which he had taken from the fingers of the dead archbishop. In other he held the sword Durandal, which sat still and quiet. A Saracen who had laid among the dead, pretending to be dead also, suddenly rose. Suddenly he crept forwards. He crept towards Roland. Never and nearer he came until when he was quite close, and he stretched his hand and he seized a Durandal. Quote, "Vanquished! He is vanquished, the nephew of Charlemagne. He is vanquished," unquote. He shouted, "Behold his sword, which I will carry with me into Arabia." But even as the Saracen seized Durandal, Roland opened his eyes. "Thou art none of our company, I ween," he cried, and raising his ivory horn, he brought it crashing down upon the head of the Saracen. Nope. Bam! Helmet and skull bone cracked beneath the blow, and the heathen fell dead at Roland's feet. "Coward," he cried. who made thee so bold that thou didst dare to lay hand upon Roland? Whoever hears of this will deem thee a madman. Even he's dying. He's dying. He knows he's dying. All of his friends are dead. And he still talks shit. This is so good. How come rappers aren't emulating this dude? Then, because they just emulate things. Then, looking sadly at his horn, he said, "For thee I have broken the mouthpiece of my horn." And the gold and the gems about it are scattered upon the ground. And now, fearing that some of the might against steel and sword, where he was no longer able to resist, Roland gathers all his strength together, taking Durandal into his hands. He went to where a bare brown rock rose out of the plains. With a mighty blow, he dashed the blade against the rock again and again, but it would not break. The steel grated and screeched upon the stone, but no scratch or dent was seen. Upon the blade, no notch upon the edge. "Oh, Holy Mary, Mother of Heaven, come to my aid," cried Roland. "Oh, my God, Durandal, what a misfortune. When I am parted from thee, I shall no longer be able to take care of thee. We together have gained many battles. We together have gained many realms, which now Charlemagne is king. We long as I live, thou shalt never be taken from me, and when I am dead, thou shalt never belong to one who shall flee before the foe. Thou who hast so long been born by a valiant warrior." So his problem, Roland's problem, is that he's about to die. Roland's about to die. And he knows he's about to die. And he's like, I can't let this sword fall in the hands of the enemy. Now, the way it's spelled out here is like, it can't fall into the hands of someone who's not courageous. I don't know, but to me, it's like he's saying, look, this is a weapon of literally, it's a weapon of mass destruction. He's one guy wielding it. He's like killing 40 dudes to every one fucking guy. So he's like, I got to figure out what to do with it. So he keeps trying to break it, over and over again. He's trying to break the sword. And a third time, Roland struck upon the rock and beat the blade with all his might, but still it would not break. Neither notch nor scratch was to be seen upon the shining steel. Then softly and tenderly he made moan, "Oh, fair and holy, my Durandal, it is not meet that the heathen should possess thee. Thou shouldest ever be served by Christian hand, for within thy hilt is many holy relic." We've talked at length about all the relics and stuff that were in this sword. Just go back and listen to the old episodes. "Please heaven, thou shalt never fall into the hands of a coward." Thus spoke he to his sword, caressing it as some loved child. Then, seeing by no means could break the sword, Roland threw himself upon the grass with his face to the foe. So when Charlemagne and all his host arrived, they might know that he had died a conqueror. Beneath him, so that he guarded them with his body, he laid his sword and horn. Clasping his hands, he raised them to the heavens. "O God," he cried, "I have sinned, and pardon me for all the wrong that I have done, both in great things and in small. And pardon me for all that I have done in the hour of my birth until now, when I am laid low." So with his hands clasped in prayer, the great warrior met his end. Through the quiet evening air was heard the rustle of angels' wings. Saint Raphael, Saint Michael of peril, and the angel Gabriel swept down upon the dreadful battlefield, and taking the soul of Roland, bore it to paradise. Thank you, guys. I get all bound up, but this is Hey, this is have a safe New Year's, everybody. This is we're gonna start a new year. Things are gonna be a little bit different, and I love everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for enjoying the show. Share this around if you want. I'm gonna make it free for everybody. So, all right. I'm John. This is the Abercast. Bye.